episode of Sailing Melody. In this episode, Dad explains our plans for the next year, Mum refits the hatches, and we visit the lovely country park at Holyhead.
I'm back again, ready to put the hatches in before the storm sets in over the next couple of days. It's meant to actually be no wind at all, but it's really windy. The boat's actually looking tidy for a change. I'm going to clean these all up and then seat them back in where they should be. First things first, I need some water to give them a wash.
Is there a place with sun all year round and pina coladas with pretty faces and sand on the ground? I want to stop this ongoing train before I lose my mind and go insane. I don't want to sleep every night. I want to light a spark in the dark. I don't want to say I'm okay, living the same every day. Come run beside me, let's take off. Let's leave this place for another place. Oh, maybe all we need is difference. It's hard at this speed to see anything. Just tell me.
One down, two to go.
I'll listen. I'll listen. When we get there, we'll throw a big feast with pina coladas, hand in hand, not out of reach. Higher, yeah, we'll be lighter, happier and much brighter. Take the step, have no regret.
Right, that's the hatches in. It kind of went well and it kind of didn't. I actually left a tube of Sikaflex at home. So I ran out of Sikaflex, which is amazing stuff, really easy to use. So I thought I'd have a look through the boat and I found some silicone cheap sealant. Don't ever use it. One, it was a different colour to the one that I was using, but I had to get the hatch in because in a couple of days time we're expecting 70-mile-an-hour winds and driving rain. So I've got to get the hatches in. So I'll show you what I've done. First two, amazing. This one is in, but will most definitely be coming out and we'll be using Sikaflex. Silicone, black, disgusting stuff that is the work of the devil. I'm absolutely covered in it. It's horrible to use. Sikaflex all the way.
Morning everybody. I'm on my own on the boat this morning and I've got a bunch of stuff to do. The weather's not too bad, so I should be able to do some outdoor work this morning. Melissa's at home, due to come off furlough and go back to work pretty soon. Jack's at school, so he's gone back to regular school in class now. I thought what I'd do this morning before I get stuck into any work is give you all a bit of a rundown of where we're actually up to, kind of a summary of where we're up to, and a sort of rough idea of what our plans are for the restoration over the next sort of 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, that kind of thing. So it gives you a bit of a picture and also explains to you what's going on inside our heads in terms of what we're planning to do. So as you've seen, we've been doing work inside the boat and outside the boat, and we've been doing work on top of the boat and underneath the boat. And the reason for that, of course, is it's British winter and it's terrible weather a lot of the time here. So we just have to kind of arrive at the boat and work where we can based on the weather. We've now got the welder, we've got the plasma cutter, we've got the steel, or a lot of it, maybe not all, but we've got a good proportion of the steel that we need. We've got some great help on the way in the form of a fantastic welder and other people contributing. And with the weather steadily improving, we're now in a position where we can actually start to do some proper work and look forward to seeing some big progress this spring and into the summer. So what is the plan? What are we actually intending to do and how are we going to go about it? Well, fundamentally, we've got metalwork and welding to do to make the boat watertight and into a floating thing. We've got the rig to sort out, we've got the engine to sort out, we've got wiring, plumbing and woodwork to do inside. So it's a case of tackling those in the best order for the time that we've got. We're going to be getting the mast down in the next few weeks. The yard books a crane in the spring to lift some boats in and put some masts up and that kind of thing, and then the crane comes back again in the autumn. Now we missed it last autumn because we'd only just got the boat, but when the crane comes back this spring, which I believe is in 2 or 3 weeks time, we've told the yard that we want them to take our mast down, and I'll make some trestles for that to go on. That will mean that we can then deal with the chain plates, which as we know are rusty, but I don't want to do too much to those with the mast still up, obviously, because I don't want to risk if the chain plates are really bad, I don't want to start disconnecting one and working on it and find that the others are too weak and the flipping mast comes down. That would be bad. It also means that the mast will be down over the whole of the summer so that we can service the mast and change any bits that we need to change. But we might do some little bits of welding before the mast comes down. So if we find out that the crane hasn't been booked until the end of April, then we'll crack on with the welding in the aft cockpits. In the cockpit and in the aft lazarettes in the meantime, but that will depend on when we get confirmation of the date for the crane to bring the mast down. So what's the extent of the welding? Let's have a look at it. From the front to the back, we know that the bowsprit is completely trash, and I don't want to start chopping up the bowsprit with the mast still up. I could detach the forestay, but I don't want to because it would be putting a lot of strain on the inner forestay, the baby stay and the shrouds, and I just think it would be safer to wait until the mast is down to tackle that job. Similarly, we know we've got a lot of welding to do in the anchor locker. Now, cutting large chunks out of the bow of the boat and that anchor locker, the bobstay for the bowsprit goes down into the chain locker. Obviously it's got a chain plate attached in there, and if I start chopping out huge areas of that chain locker and potentially then chopping out the chain plate for the bobstay, that's going to weaken the overall strength of the bowsprit, and I don't want to do that. So that will definitely wait until the mast is down. But right at the front there we've got the new bowsprit and the welding in the chain locker. And as you've seen from previous episodes, the area that we're having to chop out here of the chain locker is 3 feet there and 3 foot down, roughly. Obviously we're going to cut that from the inside because we're going to be replacing the stringers at the same time. Excuse me squinting at the sun, guys. I'm going to turn around and show you that properly. 3 foot along there like that, and 3 foot down. This is the very, very corner of the stringer in the chain locker. So the bulkhead is about there, and we know from previous episode, if you haven't seen them, watch back, the bulkhead here at the end of the chain locker stops here, and there's no rust or corrosion this side of it. So that's that side, and then the same the other side. Starboard side lazarette, we've got a patch to cut out here above this chine, 24 inches, and then we're going to come down around this chine as far as the next one, probably might stop just a bit short of that. Then it's 4 feet long to here, 12 inches up and 18 inches along. And then the port side lazarette, similar sort of story. We've got a patch here which is about 4 feet long, 12 inches deep, so 1 foot by 4 foot. And then round where the sugar scoop, which was an addition, was added on, what they did is they welded the new sugar scoop onto the transom, and they didn't paint the inside of the weld properly, so that rotted out. And that's a 6-inch strip all the way around here and all the way around to the bottom. And in terms of the big patches of welding, the anchor locker and the aft lazarettes, that's pretty much it. Around this skin fitting here, but we'll probably put a patch in here. And I think what we're going to end up doing is ditching the skin fittings, ditching the sea toilet and going for a composting toilet. Less holes in the boat, and less worry about pumping out and black water tanks and all of that kind of stuff. Let us know your thoughts on that. We've been doing a lot of reading and a lot of research, and Melissa particularly is very keen on the idea of these composting toilets. I've not looked into it quite so much because I think I'm going to be the one that has to empty it. But based on previous videos that you've seen, Melissa's a grafter, so she might empty it. Anyway, all that aside, let us know what you think. If you've got experience of both. I mean, I've got experience of normal Jabsco sea toilets, pump outs, that kind of thing. Never had one of these sea toilets. I know Sailing Uma had one and they didn't get on with it and they got rid of it. So let us know what you think anyway. So if you're wondering why all of our steel's outside, by the way, it's actually quite a common thing. Leave the steel outside and it blows off the mill scale. And it actually makes it easier to work with, easier to weld, easier to prep later. So then what about later on in the spring when we've done the welding below the waterline? Well, what we're going to do is we are going to shot blast, but we're only going to shot blast from the waterline down, and I'll explain why. As you can see here, the boat is very heavily faired, okay, above the waterline to give it some nice shape. If we shot blast to the whole boat above the waterline, which is frankly unnecessary, we've tested the steel thickness, we've looked at the inside, it's in perfect condition and the steel thickness is good. The epoxy primer is in good quality, good condition, the filler and fairing is in good condition. We're just going to sand it and top coat it. But if we sand blast or wet blast or whatever above the waterline, we'll not only be repainting, but we'll have to refair the entire hull. Now, this stuff has stuck on that boat for 40 years and protected it. There's no way I'm taking that off unless I have to. But we are going to shot blast below the waterline. There's no fairing below the waterline, it's just paint, it's just epoxy directly to the steel. So right the way from there down, we're going to blast, get the yard to do it. We're not allowed to blast using our own blasting equipment. I'm just going to move out because there was a gust of wind there and I don't know if you could hear me. We're not allowed to blast in this yard using our own equipment. So even if I hired, rented, bought a blasting unit, we can't use it, okay? So that's why we haven't done that so far and we've been doing everything with hand tools. But here's another thing. We're not going to blast until after we've done the welding. And the reason for that is we know the areas that we need to cut out and weld. And by blasting, it will actually key the surface to the same tooth all over, so that we get good adhesion with our epoxy primer to the whole boat. So otherwise we'd have different surfaces. So we're going to weld first and shot blast afterwards. It is likely that when we shot blast, we find another few little areas that we did miss with the ultrasonic, but great, we can see those visually when we shot blast. If the shot blaster blows through any areas, that's going to reveal, I'm sure, some extra little areas for us to do, but that's no bad thing. And in terms of above the waterline, top sides, coach roof, pilot house, yeah, we're doing that all by hand. One of our patrons the other day said, you know, why are you spending so much time sanding and prepping these areas if you're going to shot blast? And it's because of that. We're only going to shot blast below the waterline. There's isolated little scabs of blisters of rust, as you've seen. Melissa's been doing an amazing job sanding and prepping those. I'm going to carry on with that today. But yeah, we're treating those by hand because we're going to do everything from the waterline up manually. So in summary then, the plan is basically this. March and April, mast will come down. April, May, June, July, so this year we're going to get all the welding done. Once the welding work is completed later in the summer, when we've got some dry days, shot blasting from the waterline down. While we're doing the shot blasting, we're going to get the boat up in the air, get the lifting keel down and do that as well at the same time. The other thing I would like to try and do by the end of the summer is service the engine. I want to service all of the seacocks, although as I've said, we're getting rid of them in favour of a composting toilet. We'll just have minimal seacocks for water intake and so forth. I also want to get the packing gland, the stern gland serviced, and the prop shaft and all of that kind of business, and the rudder and steering done by the end of the autumn, or middle of the autumn. And that means by this autumn we should have a boat which is all the welding is done, all the painting is done, the engine's running, the drive propulsion system is running, and the steering system is running. And then also alongside that, during the summer, we'll have the mast down and we'll take everything off, all of the sheave blocks and what have you, service them and put them back on. That shouldn't take too long. And then in the autumn, when the crane comes back, the mast will be ready to go back up and the boat will be in a fit state to have it. And then from it, during the autumn and winter, we'll have a nice watertight boat and we'll be able to focus on more interior stuff. So woodwork, wiring, plumbing, getting the eberspatcher working, and all of that kind of stuff. And again, you might see us doing some of that work during the summer, because if we turn up here on a day when it's chucking it down with rain, we're not just going to sit and twiddle our thumbs. We'll crack on with something that we can do indoors. And finally, just to wrap this segment up, we would like the boat to be ready to put in the water during the spring to summer next year, so 12 months from now. So probably not by March actually, but certainly by June, July, August. So 12 to 18 months from now, we want this boat to be ready to splash. It's now March 2021. We would like to have the boat ready to go in the water, or be preparing imminent splash this time next year, and actually put it in the water spring stroke summer 2022. If it takes us till the following year, that's okay, we're fine with that. We won't feel like we've failed. As you know, as I know, as everybody knows with boats, everything takes longer than you think it's going to, and everything costs more than you think it's going to. So we've got a kind of budget in mind, but we're expecting it to double or triple. We've got a time scale in mind, but we're expecting it to double or at least take significantly longer. And what am I doing today then? Well, I'm carrying on from the amazing work Melissa's been doing. I'm going to prep a few more areas on the deck. This area here, there was a stainless steel pedestal for a deck compass, so I'm going to prep that area and just carry on with that kind of work. I'm also probably going to disconnect all of these wires from the deck, because as you know, as I've just said, the mast's coming down soon, so I need to start getting all of that kind of prepped, ready to come down. So without further ado, let's get that panel down from the ceiling to see if I can see the underside of the mast wiring, so I can have a good visual inspection before I start just randomly tearing into stuff. So this is the underside of the panel, just aft of the mast. Here is the fitting for the mast wiring, and I've got a feeling that might need cutting out and a piece welding in, which is not a big deal. It's only a small patch, that's fine. Here's the top side of these. They are actually just glands, they're not plugs at all. And in some ways that's a good thing, because the more plugs you have in the system, the more there is to go wrong. The downside is, unless these are plugs, and I don't think they are, then these cables come all the way from the top of the mast, and I'm going to have to detach them inside and pull them back out here. Here's a little trick. I'm probably going to disconnect most of these from this jocker block. I hate these, by the way. I hate them with a passion. I much prefer to solder and heat shrink stuff, but that's a different story. Whenever I'm cutting a wire, I'm assuming these are going to be rusted, so there's a good chance I won't be able to undo them and I'll have to cut the wire. What's really important, obviously, we've got the leisure batteries connected up, so if I just cut them with a pair of snips, there's a chance that the snips can actually short the cable as I cut through them. So first things first is I turn off the batteries, And then what I do is, if I've got to cut any wires like that, I'll actually cut them, make sure they're flush, and fold over the negative and the positive, and put a bit of tape round, so there's no chance later on of that negative and positive shorting out and causing a kind of a fire hazard. So I'll be turning the batteries off in a second while I do this job. And then just tracing this. So number 1, which was this thick white cable, no, that isn't a coax, that is a piece of flex. God only knows why they've used that, but there you go, it's just a piece of flex. Number 2, where's that going? That is going into this chock-a-block. Yeah, that's fine. Don't know what it turns on and off yet, but it'll be a spreader light or something like, oh, look. Spreader lights, there you go. Number 1. Try, the tricolor and the anchor. Oh, there you go. They have actually labelled them for me. So we've got spreader light, and then that's number 1, 2, 3. That's number 4. Steaming light. Wow, it is actually all okay. Look at that. That's really helpful. Number 5 is VHF coax, and number 6, this one. If you look at that, that's got like loads of different colours. What that is, that's the masthead wind anemometer, wind speed and direction. So I'm actually gonna, that's got no power going to it anyway, or it has actually, but yeah, so I'm gonna disconnect these and leave them up connected here so that I can reconnect them again very easily. Well, as always, that took a bit of doing. So I've just taken off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 deck fittings. The corrosion underneath doesn't look too bad. It's just a bit of surface rust. So we were thinking that was quite thin, but it's not. And as always, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 little bolts threaded into the deck, and the last one, number 18 of 18, was an absolute swine. So this is just boat work. This is what it's like. Undoing 18 screws under normal circumstances, what's that take? 5 minutes? That just took me an hour and a half, because I had to batter it with this thing, and I had to get it with that, and I had to get it with that, and I had to get it with these, and that's just boat work for you. The end of another day. I'm just going to get this aqua steel on, the rust converter on the bits that I've done, and then I'm going to call it a night. There's the starboard side window and the centre window. and try not to hit my head again. Keep hitting my head on the boom today. And the port side window, the forward windows in the pilot house. There you go. Quite happy with today. That's quite a nice achievement. It's a very still evening, but as I say, look at that dark cloud behind me. That's looking grim. I think we're in for some serious rain tonight.
Once again, thank you so much for watching. The full edit of our visit to the country park is on Patreon, so click the link in the description to go to our Patreon page. But before you go, please click the like button and subscribe and hit the notification bell. And also, please leave us a comment.